This is Anne Marie, and thank you very much for joining me on Tarot Joy on Achieve International Spiritual, Holistic, and Psychic Radio. Today's guest is Eric Linter, who is a national astrologer.
Alignment occurred. The two principal parties here, Uranus and Pluto, were in different signs because they both move so slowly. This is a very infrequent kind of situation. We have to go back to the 1930s.
Oh my.
The early 30s for the most recent, and actually, because Pluto wasn't discovered until 1930, that was, you know, the first time humans consciously experienced these energies. And
right.
So I was watching the weather the other night here in Boston and was surprised to see that a number of record cold numbers were set back in 1934, which would have been just as that prior series was eased off. I usually look to Neptune when we have patterns of particularly wet or cold weather, when we deal with flooding. And Neptune is also in a challenging situation these days in another square with the planet Saturn. So there are astrological indicators, and March, which is just around the corner, because it has the last of this intense series of 7 Uranus-Pluto squares on March the 16th, there's also going to be a total eclipse of the sun that same week on Friday the 20th. So I really see March as a pivotal month of the year where a lot of revelations and evolutionary steps are going to be taken. And of course, there will be Newton's principle of for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. We can expect the arch conservatives and the fundamentalists to respond with equal vigor and fury.
You know, that's just so many violent things happening. Why is that happening, Eric?
Well, the energy of Uranus squaring Pluto is, again, very chaotic. And again, if we turn to history, we saw back in the 30s the rise of people like Hitler.
My gosh, you're right.
So we have really interesting parallels between the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, our weird weather, these various repressive governments that are, you know, in Egypt where there was a democracy movement and people were unhappy with, you know, who won the election, so the military took over. You know, we're witnessing a lot of different chess games being played out. You know, the Sunnis have pretty much backed Al-Qaeda, and the Shia, the other main arm of Islam, has had a say with, you know, organizations like ISIS or Hezbollah. Many of these rivalries go back hundreds, if not thousands, of years.
Yeah.
And I think in our country, it's very hard for us to fully comprehend how deep these divisions really run. Again, Pluto has a way of exposing the underbelly, the stuff that we're not comfortable dealing with. And part of this has to do with our own government and the policies, you know, that we supposedly support. In my view, you know, I recently commented on Facebook, which you may have seen, that so far the age of Aquarius seems to be more about romance. It's about having the really right people around you, being very selective and seeking out the company of upbeat people who can help you to better understand yourself and life and reach your own goals.
Eric, now that we are out of people, I would like you to talk about your history a little bit. Could you tell me when you got started in astrology and the people that were dominant in your life as getting you started?
Well, it was an accident. When I was a teenager, I lost my dad in a very unfortunate circumstance.
Oh.
And that set me on a path. I had already begun questioning a lot of things that I saw in the world around me. But certainly losing my dad really opened up a gaping wound. I just recently had the anniversary of his death just a couple of days ago, so it's been very much on my mind this week. And in my search for wisdom, really, and understanding some of the mysteries of life and what it all means, I began studying a lot of world religions and philosophies, and I was introduced to astrology. Somebody left a book, at our house, a friend of my brother's. That was the first astrology book I ever saw, and it didn't make much sense to me. But some years later, when I had just graduated college, I had the opportunity to meet an astrologer, and it was such a mind-blowing and profound experience. I was stunned by her knowledge of people, and I asked her, how did you do that? And her name was Isabel Hickey, and Isabel was a very wise teacher, a gifted psychic, and really just, several generations ahead of the curve. She was literally a walking New Age personality before anybody knew there was a New Age. And and she said, well, come back next Sunday and I'll teach you. And that's really what got me started. I would spend my summertime Sundays at Isabel's summer farmhouse up in New Hampshire. And wow. At that point, she was getting into her 70s and was happy really just to have some folks to meditate with her or talk with whoever came to visit her. And every time I would go there, there'd be an Egyptologist or a kahuna expert, or trance mediums. People would come in from all over the world to hang out with her. So I kind of got this I'm not sure what kind of school you would describe it as, but it was an interesting education. And from there, I fell in love with astrology and began collecting books and charts of everybody that I could. There were no computer programs in those days, and even erecting charts was quite an undertaking. I finally took a class in just doing that, and while attending a school for the healing arts out in California, I was doing readings for fun, and people... one day, one of my friends said, that was really helpful and very profound, and I'm going to pay you for it. And that's how I became a professional astrologer. Again, it wasn't anything consciously undertaken or intended. I kind of stumbled into it. And I continue to love it. I love working with people and helping them deal with their challenges and facilitate their transformations. And it continues to be a source of great joy, and it pays the bills. So what more could I ask for?
Oh, yes, it does. Then there was a second person also you mentioned in your bio, Robert.
Robert Cole. Yeah, actually, he was teaching at that School for the Healing Arts, and I took some classes with him, the one on chart calculation, as well as a couple of others. And it was while in his classes that I came to the conclusion that after 9 years of study, I really knew a lot. Before then, I had no yardstick, to measure where I was at with astrology.
I guess I've always wondered, how do you feel about the difference between astrology
you cut out on me. You cut out on me.
Oh, how do you feel about the difference between astrology through internet or the computer charting and hand charting? Is there any difference between that? Do you feel that you should know one before the other for people who want to get into this, or how do
As I struggled with the mathematical side of erecting a chart, and back in the old days you needed 3 different books and a calculator to go through the steps. And the books themselves were not terribly accurate in some cases. Once computer programs came around, it's a matter of seconds to punch in the data, assuming you do it correctly, and you get these charts. Isabel used to say to me, don't be discouraged. The part of the brain that calculates a chart isn't the part that makes a good reader. And I think, from the perspective of intuition, because really astrology is a language in itself, and what we're doing is synthesizing hundreds of symbols to come up with an understanding of what the person is about. It's not linear track thinking, the way we were taught to use our minds in school. And I think really, mentoring is a wonderful way to learn astrology, like in a study group setting rather than in a lecture hall.
And you do that, don't you? You do some teaching and lecturing.
Yeah, I do. I miss the days when I was living in Boston. I had a group. We met for 8 years weekly, working with each other's charts and celebrity charts and events in the news. And that was fascinating work because I believe everybody has their valuable insights and understanding of life. And in translating it into astrological terms, everybody can learn, and grow from other people's knowledge.
And so you feel that having also an intuitive ability helps you to decipher also what you're seeing and why maybe at that group, maybe different people would see things in different ways?
Yeah. I feel like every one of us has enough basic understanding of the different signs, as we go through growing up and meet the Pisces or the Taurus or the Cancer in school. And most of us are drawn for various, points of attraction through these charts to certain types of people. And, an old-time friend and client contacted me a couple of years ago with the question of why are there so many Scorpios born around this time in my life? What's the astrological signature there? There are, as I say, sort of hidden meanings behind these various connections. And the way I think of astrology, Anne-Marie, is we're all here on this planet Earth in school. We're all here to learn about time and space and how to function in the physical realm. And the chart represents each person's curriculum. The birth chart.
The birth curriculum.
Yeah,
or the birth,
it shows what
life.
Strengths we have, gifts, things we've mastered, but also where we have rough edges and need to work on ourselves.
And I know with psychic reading, it's always very important to say to a person, the future is changeable according to your actions. Is astrology set, or can a person change their course at all?
That's a 2,000-year-old debate, at least. And it depends on who you talk to. I'm not a fatalist. Isabel Hickey was one of the first teachers in the 20th century to really stress that we can work with the planetary energies, we can use them, in positive ways, that we don't have to be fatalistic and feel that because we have bad things in our horoscope charts that we're doomed to suffer. When we study the charts of famous people throughout history, inevitably those charts have some very difficult astrological arrangements in them. And those same energies, they boil down to just being pure energy. The question always is, can we harness that energy? So, for example, we've all been living through what I consider some of the most challenging years in our lifetimes. Anybody on the planet the past 5 years has lived through these series of Uranus-Pluto squares. And on New Year's Eve, we were staying up late watching the Three Stooges, and after we got tired of watching the Three Stooges marathon, we put on the Marx Brothers doing Duck Soup, which I couldn't believe. I had never seen Duck Soup. And it's basically an anti-war movie from like 1932, right in the middle of that last series of Pluto-Uranus squares. So while Hitler is seizing power in Germany and plotting how to rearm and conquer the world, the Marx Brothers are making fun of war. And again, they're using the same planetary forces, but for very different purposes. And we all have these choices. And it's a great movie if you've never seen it.
Well, you know what, Eric? I enjoyed being with you today, and thank you for joining us, and thank you for your insight on, for those who may want to learn astrology or wonder about the mysteries of it. I always and I love blending our readings and seeing what comes up. I'll enjoy it even more when I have two hands. I
hope that's soon.
I do too. Next week the cast comes off. So what is your website?
My website is ericlinter.com.
And you have another one, stars?
My email address is stars@ericlinter.com. I put out my daily forecasts on the spiritofchange.org website.
All right. And your Facebook is pretty interesting, too.
Why, thank you.
Bye, Eric.
Be well,
Take care, hon.
Good healing.
Bye. Thanks.
Psychic radio, holistic radio, spiritual radio. This is AchieveRadio.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/AchieveRadio.
Hi, I'm Anne-Marie O'Dell at Achieve Radio's Tarot Joy. Come on upstairs. Grab yourself a tapestried pillow and get a down-home, honest reading with 30 years Master Tarot channeling experience. In addition, I will have a weekly spiritual guest from around the world. That's 2 readings per call for you. After the show, I invite you to come on over to thecallingoflight.com. I offer PayPal readings at 15-minute or 30-minute sections of time. All yours. To thecallingoflight.com.